main topic is going to be reflecting on the U.S. Women's National Team and Canada match. To catch you guys up to speed in case you haven't been able to watch the game, just a few highlights. Canada had a few chances throughout the match leading up to Rose Lavelle's goal. Janine Becky had two opportunities that were both saved. They were sitters, so I kind of feel bad for that she wasn't able to convert. And Nichelle Prince also had a couple opportunities that she squandered. However, at the end of the day, Rose Lavelle came to fruition. She was subbed on in the second half, and in the 79th minute, a cross from Kristin Press on a set piece deflected off a Canadian player, bounced to Rose Lavelle, and Rose Lavelle put it into the bottom right-hand corner of the net through traffic and scored, and that was enough for the U.S. to come away with the win in 3 points. So the shot was low grounded, ended up at the back of the net, and that's all you need sometimes. So that's just basically the main highlights of the game. This was by and large not the most entertaining game to watch, especially with the United States Women's National Team that we've become accustomed to. But that, like I said, that happens sometimes. Variety is the spice of life, and just sheer domination all the time is no fun. What lineup did the United States end up using? They used a 4-3-3 with a holding midfielder per usual. Starting in goal was Alyssa Nair. In the right back position, we had Midge Margaret Purse, who plays for Sky Blue FC. Then we had Abby Dahlkemper playing alongside her in the central defending position, who currently plays for Manchester City. Then alongside Abby, we had Captain America herself, Becky Sauerbrunn, who plays for the Portland Thorns. Then on the left back position, we had Crystal Dunn, who also plays for the Portland Thorns, rounding off that defensive four. Then moving on up to the midfield, in holding midfield, we had the Honorable Julie Ertz, who plays for the Chicago Red Stars. Playing along to her left in the left central midfield position, we had Lindsay Haran, who also plays for the Portland Thorns. Seems like a lot of players from the U.S. play for Portland lately, but Lindsay Haran was on the left side of that midfield. Then on the right central midfield, we had Katrina Macario of Olympic Lyonnais making her start, which is really exciting to see. Macario is an up-and-coming talent. Can't wait to see what she does with her the rest of her career. Then moving on up to the forward line, in the left wing, we had Megan Rapinoe. In the striking position, we had Carly Lloyd, and on the right wing, we had Lynn Williams. There were 6 subs made throughout the game. They included Kristin Press, Alex Morgan, Rose Lavelle, Casey Kruger, knee short, Emily Sonnet, and Kristy Mewis, if I'm not mistaken. So that was the lineup, and those were the subs that were made. The subs made a big difference, so I got to give Vlatko credit for that. Kristin Press got the assist, Rose Lavelle got the score. Kristy Mewis passed out of her mind in the 20 minutes that she was on the field. Maybe it was a little bit longer than 20 minutes. Maybe it was more like 30. Can't remember off the top of my head. But Kristy Mewis, I thought, played another really good game. So she keeps keeping herself in the conversation for the Olympics. Can't wait to see how that goes down. What are my overall thoughts about the match? Just looking at it from the view of 10,000 feet. Overall, I think the game was lackluster. It was really aggressive, as most Canada-US matches are. Me personally, I underestimated Canada like tremendously. I thought that with 7 players missing out on their roster, a lot of them starters, one of them being Christine Sinclair, the most prolific goal scorer in women's soccer history, I thought they would struggle a lot more than what they actually did. I would say their performance was tremendous, and I would actually say they deserved to come away with something, but at the end of the day, they didn't. I got to give them credit. They played really well. They just kind of squandered the chances that they had, and when you play against really good teams like the U.S., you can't really do that. There were times when Canada was playing so well and snubbing out crosses that I kind of thought, it's as if they knew what the U.S.'s game plan was, and they executed their tactics to counteract that to a T. It's like they knew what the U.S. was going to do before they even did it, which I thought was really, really impressive. Excuse me, guys. I would say that they did a good job at defending crosses in particular. The U.S. has proven to be a team that likes to get their outside backs wide and send in balls into the box while the wingers kind of sag in a little bit and are there for rebounds and for shooting opportunities. And then they feed the midfield and also the strikers like Carly Lloyd, Sam Mewis, Lindsay Haran, things like that. And Canada did a good job of defending against that this game, I thought. On the flip side of the coin, everybody's got a bad day at the office, and this was definitely it for the U.S. Like I said, they had a lackluster performance. Very few convincing chances, I would say. A lot of the chances that they had were shot wide. There was one chance in particular Carly Lloyd had later on in the second half. She received this beautiful ball. I think it was from, I want to say it was Lynn Williams, but it definitely could have been Lindsay Haran too. She got her head to it and just skied it. She had an open header. I was shocked that Carly Lloyd actually missed it. Like that was her bread and butter of a chance. She loves to score with her head. But at the end of the day, Canada probably could have won this game. They really could. If you told me by the end of the game that they won by a scoreline of 2-0, 2-1, I would not have been surprised at all. And I expect them to come out really strong against Argentina and win that game pretty easily. When they play Brazil, I think that's going to be one of the more interesting matches. I think the two most interesting matches, well, three I'll say, were Canada US, Brazil US, and then Canada Brazil. I think those three matches are going to be the three to watch moving on from this particular match in the tournament. At the end of the day, like I said earlier, Vlatko makes some good adjustments in the second half, and the U.S. got the W despite Canada's brave and excellent performance. In case you didn't know, with this win, Vlatko improves to 14-0-0, which is the best start to U.S. Women's national team coach's tenure in history. So good on Vlatko for doing that, the master tactician. He is something akin to Pep Guardiola in that he's the philosopher, as Zlatan Ibrahimovic has called Pep Guardiola in the past. And I will say this, overall, the sign of great teams is that when they have an off day and they could still win games. So for me, this was a good win for the U.S. That's the overall impressions I got from the match. I'm going to dig into more individual level performances and maybe how they just sort of affect the stock moving forward for the Olympics. Not really a whole ton of stock has changed since the entire team didn't really do all that well. So I'll just get that out right away. Who was my woman of the match? Rose Lavelle. That's got to be it. That's got to be the one and only. She scored a very much needed goal for the U.S. as a sub. She came on and was the difference. And she was heavily involved in the play leading up to that, too. She got some balls into dangerous areas. She got one to Lynn Williams that caught my eye in particular. There's nothing really that she did that didn't go well. So I would say Rose Lavelle is my woman of the match for that goal in particular. Moving on to the other players, we'll go from the back of the formation to the front, starting with Alyssa Nair. What did Alyssa Nair do well? She came up with some big saves when they needed them most. I know I said that Nichelle Prince coughed up some chances. Janine Becky had a couple sitters. At the end of the day, Alyssa Nair saved both of those chances from Janine Becky, so some credit has to be due there. She kept them in the game because she could very easily have gotten nutmegged on those chances and let them go through. So I got to give Alyssa Nair some credit, even though they were sitters and Janine Becky should have scored. At the end of the day, Alyssa Nair still saved it, and she still did really well to keep the U.S. in the game. In addition to that, the U.S. played a lot out the back this game, meaning that the back line a lot of times would throw back passes to Alyssa Nair, and she handled all of them pretty well. So good on Alyssa Nair for doing that. I would say she's still my bona fide number one starter and best United States keeper that we have. So there's that. Moving on to the defensive line, we'll start with Midge Purse. What went well for Midge Purse today? She looked a lot more comfortable in the right back position than she has in games previously. I think by nature she's more suited to be a right winger, and I think Vlatko's trying to utilize her in ways that she might not eventually be used to, and it took her a few games to get used to that. Did she play amazing? Not, I would say not entirely, no. She looked a lot more comfortable. She was really good on the ball. She drew some fouls in some pretty dangerous areas, and she defended adequately. She did her job well enough to help them win, but she didn't play outstanding, I guess is the best way I can sum it up. What went wrong for Midge Purse? There were a couple times where I noticed she'd get kind of sucked into the middle of the pitch, and it would give Janine Becky way too much room out wide. For example, in the first sitter that Janine Becky had, I know Nichelle Prince had a fortunate bounce that was blocked, and it just fell to Janine Becky, but you could tell Midge Purse was on top of Abby Dahlkemper a few times on a couple of chances that Canada had, and it was okay, you need to kind of get out a little bit wider there. I don't know if that's part of the U.S. game plan, but to me it just seemed like she was a little out of position on a couple of those chances, and it really could have cost the U.S., so those are just my thoughts on that. And plus, she had a potential handball late in the game. I don't know how you guys feel about the two handballs that probably should have been called in this game, but there was one in the third minute that Canada had bounced off her arm, probably should have been a penalty. But then later on, that one was at least questionable. But later on, it was later on in the game too. It was after Rose's goal. It was the 86th minute. Midge Purse got her arm, the ball literally hit her in the bicep, and her arms outstretched, and the referee didn't deem that a handball. I was kind of that's definitely a handball. Even as a U.S. fan, I had to admit, I'm that is definitely a handball. But neither here nor there. We walked away the benefactors of that, and I guess it's kind of evened out at the end of the day. They didn't get a handball called against them. We didn't get one get called against us, so it evens out at the end of the day. But can't be making mistakes like that late in the game with the stakes on the line. But that's just my thoughts on Mitzi Purse. Does it help her stock for the Olympics? I don't think so. Does it hurt her stock for the Olympics? No, probably not. To be honest, I don't think from what I've been hearing, from what my friend Heidi has told me, that Kelly O'Hara, I believe, picked up an injury in the warm-ups, and that's really the only reason why Mitzi Purse started. We could be wrong on that, though. I haven't seen any confirmation on it. I know Heidi wasn't too quite sure. Shout out to you, Heidi. Thank you for putting that on my radar. But anyways, moving on to Abby Dahlkemper. What went well for Abby today? She defended adequately. I don't think Abby really stood out to me in this game. I didn't think she performed out of her mind or anything like that. She had some really solid passing, I thought. Abby has turned into one of the better passing center backs that I've seen. Whether it's long balls, short balls, I think Abby's deadly in that particular facet of her game. What went wrong for her? Really not a ton. I don't think Abby was really a negative at all in this game. I just don't think she was a very big positive, if that makes sense. And honestly, the same can be really said for Becky, in my opinion, the honorable Captain America herself. Becky is one of the best defenders in the world, if not the best defender, and she definitely showed it off in that match. I would say that was the best part of her performance, was her defending. She was making tackles in important areas. She was facilitating play. A little bit of miscommunication between her and Crystal Dunn on Crystal's back pass that almost fell to a good Nichelle Prince, who almost scored, but they coped with it. They didn't score, so all is forgiven. That's a good segue, actually, to move on to Crystal Dunn's performances. What went well? Originally, I thought Crystal performed tremendously, and I still think she performed well, just not as well as I originally thought she did. She defended well. She got forward a ton. She had 1,000,001 crosses. She was really good on the ball, too. She had one particular moment of brilliance in this game where she was cruising up the left wing. She took it from, I believe, their own half all the way into the attacking third. And she had a couple good moves. She had a really good cross to Alex Morgan, and then Alex Morgan headed it wide. So I got to give credit to Crystal. She is phenomenal in a lot of those forward areas, and I'd say she's probably one of the most complete players that the U.S. has besides Sam Mewis. So good on her, because I thought she played very well. The only nitpick that I have with her is she had that faulty back pass to Nichelle Purse, which almost could have caused a goal. That was pretty bad. It's as if she was halfway between, do I want to bomb this one to Alyssa Nair for her to play out the back, or do I want to kind of nudge it to Becky, who's in a little bit of traffic right now, and I think she just kind of got caught in the middle of that. So that happens sometimes. That might be a bit of a nitpick, but that could have been really, really bad. Moving on up to the midfield, Julie Ertz. What went well for Julie? She defends out of her mind, as she does every game. She is consistent business as usual. She had some great crosses. She had one in particular to Lynn Williams. Lynn let it go, and it went to Lindsay Haran. I believe this is the moment when Lindsay Haran ricocheted that ball off the crossbar, which I could see it kind of shake and wobble. So when the second Lindsay wound up for that shot, I was like, this ball is going to end up in the back of the net. And if it was 2 inches lower, it probably would have. But that just happens sometimes. What went wrong for Julie for that particular match? Some long passes felt a little short. Normally her passes are a little higher, they're a little bit more lofted, but today they just fell a little short at times. I noticed she might have held on to the ball in the midfield a couple times a little too long. I would notice that she'd get the ball from one of her teammates, she'd make a tackle, and then Nichelle Prince would kind of sneak up behind her and steal the ball back, which that's a nitpick. I recognize that that's a bit of a nitpick, and that's a little harsh, but it's just something I noticed about her play. The only reason I noticed is because the U.S. likes to do it to their opposing teams. So, I mean, when the opposing teams do it to them, it's like that Michael Scott quote from The Office where he goes, "Oh my, how the turntables." I don't know why it made me think of that, but there's that. Julie Ertz, still one of the best midfielders in the world, in my opinion. Moving on to Lindsay Haran. What went well for Lindsay today? I thought Lindsay passed out of her mind. I thought she had one of the best performances of this match. She was doing fancy flicks. She was doing outside of the foot passes. She was doing long balls. She was doing crosses. She was literally facilitating a lot of the attacking play for the U.S., the little that they had. And it was impressive, honestly. I thought she gave a pretty good performance and created a few chances. She had that shot where she calmly, coolly, and collected herself, let it take the bounce, and nailed it right off the crossbar. Like I said, if that ball's 2 inches lower, she scores a goal for the U.S. and gives them something much needed. If she scores that goal, she's my woman of the match, basically, is what I'm trying to say. She maintains that enforcement charisma in the midfield that we often see with Lindsay Haran. She's an enforcer. She doesn't let herself or her teammates get pushed around in the midfield by opposing teams, and it's really aggressive. And between her and Juilliard's doing that in the midfield, I think it's to the US's benefit. Plus, with Kelly O'Hare in the defensive line, you see that in multi areas of the pitch, which is great. I think Lindsay Haran is a great complement to that. Having said that, what went wrong? I think she was a little too reckless at times. I think there's one moment in particular where I'm like, Lindsay definitely should have gotten a yellow card. It was when she wrapped her arms around one of the Canadian midfielders. I believe it was Quinn, but she like literally dragged her and like lifted her off the ground, and it was just like what? And I'm just surprised that the referee didn't give a minimum a yellow card there. Like a red card, no, absolutely not. A yellow though, I think she was deserving of that. So got to be a little bit more careful than that in some cases. I think she got off easy on that. And she also, if you'll notice when she got subbed off, this is the other thing that went wrong for Lindsay. When she got subbed off, there was blood pouring out of her nose. I don't know what happened to her. I don't know who she ran into. I don't know if it was a spontaneous nosebleed. If any of you know who drew blood or how she drew blood, please feel free to jump down in the comments below and let me know how. Because for the life of me, I watched the game twice, couldn't figure out either time. So if you feel like it, feel free to jump down in the comments below and let me know. How does this affect Lindsay's stock going for the Olympics? She was going to the Olympics anyway. That hasn't changed for me. Moving on to the last midfielder, Katrina Macario. What went well for Katrina Macario today? She was solid on the ball. She had some fancy flicks. She was good in some tight spaces. She would win the ball high up the field on occasion. I believe earlier on in the game, she won the ball on a tackle right outside the penalty area and got the ball to Carly Lloyd. I don't remember what the outcome of that was. Obviously, Carly didn't score, but she won the ball high up the field on occasion. What went wrong for Katarina? She had a really quiet game. I thought Katarina Macario didn't play all that well. It's like if I had to rate her performance on a scale of 0 to 10, I would just say 6. Like it was okay. Like it wasn't a difference maker, but it didn't hurt the team either. So she just played okay, and I'll just kind of leave it at that. Does it affect her stock for the Olympics? I wouldn't read too much into this particular match. Like I said, the whole team didn't really play very well. And as I said earlier on, I don't think any of these players' Olympic stocks have really dropped because of this performance. Because like I said, they all played bad. When everyone's playing bad, that's just kind of how the cookie crumbles. Moving on to Megan Rapinoe. What went well for Megan? She had some excellent set piece services, as she usually does. I think Megan Rapinoe is one of the best set piece specialists in the world, if not the best. She's a masterclass free kick taker, and it obviously shows, and it showed in this game as well. There were a couple of occasions I noticed where she would get back deep to defend when they needed it most. There were a couple times where maybe she was lackadaisical, so that was a little inconsistent, at least in my mind it was, but that's I guess a good segue into what went wrong for her. There's a couple instances where it felt a little lackadaisical. Maybe I'm just didn't have the angles and I was just reading too much into it. She didn't really do a ton wrong in this game. She just didn't stand out. She just didn't stand out as per status quo for Megan Rapinoe performances, but that's a nitpick. Let's move on to Carly Lloyd. What went well for Carly Lloyd? She got the ball to some dangerous areas. I thought she played a solid match. She got a couple chances. Where she's been shining really brightly for me lately is the high press. She has said, I believe on a couple of occasions, that she loves participating in that high press, and it turns out she's really good at it. She really puts pressure on the goalkeeper, the other defenders in the back line for opposing teams, especially LeBay in this case. Her and Lynn Williams, I think, did a pretty good dynamic up top there, especially with Lynn's pace. In that high press, it really helps when you've got two very aggressive players up top like that. What went wrong for Carly Lloyd? She bottled an open header. I'll just say it. She bottled the open header on the cross from Lynn Williams. Lynn Williams had an excellent assist opportunity to Carly Lloyd, and she just headed over the bar. That happens. I had another thought going into that. I said on the previous podcast in the U.S. Women's National Team Canada preview that I thought Carly Lloyd was going to score sometime in this game, like around the 70th minute, I believe I thought was what I hypothesized, and it would have come true, but I was definitive. I'm like, Carly Lloyd had so many chances against Colombia, like she's bound to get one and convert it this game. I was wrong. She did not end up converting the chances this game, but she'll get there. The team will get there, and they will persevere. Moving on to Lynn Williams. What went well for Lynn Williams? I think this is the best game she had in 2021, which she did it all. She had good crosses. She had good shots. She tested the keeper. She put pressure on Stephanie LeBay, the Canadian goalkeeper, in the high press quite a few times and forced her to cough up the ball to areas where she might not have otherwise. She created some good chances. She had that high press. She had a really solid performance. I would say that this is like one of the players where it might have helped their Olympic stock a little bit. Is it the end-all be-all, the big difference maker? Not really. I'm still not extremely high on Lynn Williams. I will say she led the United States in assists in the year of 2020, so there's that. But what went wrong for her? Not really a ton. Like, I would say that out of all the players' performances, she had top 5. Like, she was one of the better performances of this match. So good on Lynn Williams. It's good to see her succeed. Moving on to the subs then. As I said earlier, there were 6 subs. What went well and what went wrong for all of them? We'll start with Kristin Mewis. Kristin Mewis, the one thing that stood out for me was she had some phenomenal long balls in the short time that she was on the field. Like I said earlier, I don't believe she was on the field longer than 20 minutes. She had a phenomenal long ball from their own defending third all the way up the pitch to Alex Morgan. Alex Morgan coughed the ball up, of course, but earlier on, like just a few minutes before that, like Kristin Mewis had a good ball. I forgot to who. I believe it was to Kristin Press, who shot it wide. And then she had another brilliant long ball to Kristin Press down the right wing. So she was throwing dimes, basically, to a lot of her teammates in the attacking third. So good on Christy for that. She's performing consistently well in these matches, and I have to think that that helps her Olympic stock a little bit more. We'll have to see how it keeps going. There's plenty of time between now and the Olympics. If she keeps performing like this, who knows? She might even make the Olympic roster. Especially with how consistently good she's been playing. It's been amazing. This is the year of Kristin Mewis. Moving on to Kristin Press. What went well for Kristin Press? What went wrong? We'll start off with what went well. She got the assist. Formally, I don't know if she got the assist. I'm no expert FIFA statistician, but in my mind, she got the assist because she was basically the only pass between her and Roosevelt scoring, but it deflected off of a Canadian defender, so technicalities come into play that I don't really know how that works, but in my mind, she got the assist. She did really well in wide areas. I was a bit skeptical earlier on in my content making, where people were insistent that Kristin Press is by definition plays best on the wing. The more and more I've been seeing Kristin Press play, the more I'm like, yeah, she definitely should be on the wing if she's playing. I still contend she could be a center forward who plays more of a false 9 role, but that's a whole different story on another podcast episode that I did about a month ago. Feel free to check that out on my channel if you're curious. But anyway, she did really well in wide areas. She was creative. She had a chance, and I thought she played good for being a sub. What went wrong? The one chance that she did had, I believe it came from Kristin Mewis. She didn't convert it. She shot it wide left, which you're not going to take all your chances. But if she tested the keeper, that would have just been nice. It would have turned this what went wrong into what went well. So there's that as well. Moving on to Alex Morgan, what went well for her? First off, I want to say it was really awesome to actually see her get on the field and being able to play. I know with the last camp, she wasn't able to participate because she got COVID, which I'm glad she seems to have healed and recovered. She got a chance, but she unfortunately shot it wide. What went wrong for Alex? She coughed up the ball a couple times in some vital areas. Like I said earlier, she received this beautiful long ball from Kristin Mewis. She was one-on-one. She had a ton of space. It was between her and the defender, and then as soon as she gets by that defender, all you need to do is beat LeBay. When you're as good as Alex Morgan is, when you get a pass like that and you have that chance, you can't just cough up the ball. Like, if the defender in that situation made a good tackle, fine. But, like, Alex just gave up the ball. Like, she just mishandled it. And that happens. These are humans, you know? It's like they're world class, but it just happens. It's just, if I'm nitpicking, that's just the one area that I would nitpick. Moving on to Emily Sonnet and Casey Krueger. If I'm being completely honest here, the sample size for me in this game was too small. I don't think they were really involved in enough play for me to make an accurate assessment of what went well and what went wrong for either of them. I thought they did serviceably. I know Emily Sonnet, Adriana Leon had a really nice move on Emily Sonnet. That's the only note I really remember, and I remember Casey being really aggressive. The one thing I will say for Casey, though, I was really pumped to see her get some minutes in this game. I believe she's come out and said publicly, maybe once from what I've been hearing, that she thought she was kind of out of the picture and that maybe her U.S. career was over, but not so fast. She gets the call up for the SheBelieves Cup, and she got some minutes. So really good on Casey Krueger for getting in some minutes. Really happy to see her succeed in that. But if I'm being honest, I don't believe I can really accurately assess their performances without a larger sample size. So there's that, guys. Wrapping up all of the individuals' performances, I'm just going to say this was a great test for the U.S., especially since they just played a Colombian team that wasn't very good. and it was really interesting to see them cope from playing a really bad team going to a really good team. And then before that, playing a really good team in the Netherlands, playing a bad team in Colombia, and then playing another good team in Canada. It was just really cool to see that transition and how they coped with it and what they can do for the next game when they play Brazil. Even the best teams, they have to learn to rise above their adversity and learn to play really well and get results. They got the result in that match, and now they get to gear up for Brazil. I am really interested to see how Vlatko adjusts some of the tactics for the match against Brazil, if at all. I think the match didn't really come down to him having poor tactics. I think it came down to the players just not performing as well as they normally would be. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. All right, guys. So those are just my thoughts on the U.S. Women's National Team Canada match that took place on Wednesday, I think. No, I'm sorry. It was Thursday. It was. What did you guys make of the match? Are there any players that stood out to you? Did it help their Olympic stock? Did you know about Rose Lavelle having a cow named after her? Whatever you thought about the match, feel free to jump down in the comments below and let me know what you thought about it.